Philadelphia News, team of my heart.
You paid Paul George $212 million, and what did you get? A 24-win season, no playoffs, and now he's on the trade block. You deserve answers, and this Sixers news just lit the fuse. What's next in this trade mess? Stay in your seat. You're frustrated. I know you are, because you watched every game, every Paul George pull-up jumper that rimmed out, every lifeless possession while Joel Embiid sat in street clothes again, and all those long nights wondering how a team this expensive could look this broken. And now the rumors start flying. Trade? That's the word you're hearing again. Only this time. It's not about bringing someone in. It's about sending Paul George out. After just one season. After handing him the keys and a contract worth over $200 million. You have every right to feel betrayed. Let me ask you something. Did you expect the Sixers to finish with just 24 wins? Did you think adding Paul George would weaken the team's firepower? No, you didn't. Nobody did. That's the pain. You were promised a new big three. Maxey, Embiid, George. But what you got was injuries, disconnection, and a team that looked like it didn't know who it was or who was even driving the bus. And now with the no 3 pick in the NBA draft on the table, the whispers get louder. Trade back. Include George. Start over. It's more than just a rumor now. It's a scenario that's being talked about openly. Chris Mannix didn't sugarcoat it either when he said the Sixers are exploring it. Not just the pick, but George himself. That's not just smoke. That's fire. And for you, this brings a heavy question. Are you ready to admit it didn't work? To hit reset again? Because here's the thing. If the Sixers trade back and move George, it's a signal. Not just that the front office admits the failure, but that they want flexibility, youth, a chance to reposition this roster before Maxey's prime is wasted, and Embiid's knee gives out one last time. And you know time is running out. Every wasted year chips away at your hope. Still, this is Sixers news that hits different. Because Paul George wasn't supposed to be a question mark. He was the answer. The experienced, elite two-way wing that the Sixers were missing. A closer. A leader. A fit. But if he's part of a trade package to move down in the draft, what does that say about his future in Philly? Or your team's timeline? You might be asking yourself, why not just keep the pick? And George, build both for now and later. But you know it's never that clean. George is aging, and this last season minus 41 games, under 20 points a night, tells a story that front offices pay close attention to. You can't ignore the signs, and neither can Daryl Morey. Still, you want to believe in a solution. You want a plan. And maybe this is it? Maybe the Sixers trade George, drop a few spots, and bring into pieces instead of one. Maybe they land a solid veteran and still pick up a young player who can grow next to Maxey and McCain. Maybe Nick Nurse can finally run a team that makes sense. And you know what else? It might finally allow Embiid to stop pretending he has to carry this team alone. Because you've seen what happens. When the weight is all on him, he breaks down every year, and you know it. So maybe, just maybe, removing George and reshaping the roster is the only way to get this thing back on track. But if you're being honest, there's a pit in your stomach right now. Not just because George might be gone, but because it means you were wrong. The plan failed, and the future still unclear. This is more than a trade. It's a reflection of everything that went sideways this season. And you're left asking, what are we really building here? So tell me, do you want the Sixers to trade Paul George? Or do you think one bad year shouldn't be enough to give up? Let me know in the comments. You remember the excitement, don't you? The day the Sixers locked in Paul George, your hopes shot through the roof. You told yourself this was it. This was the move that would finally give Embiid the help he's needed for years. No more excuses. But now, one season later, you're staring at a disaster. A 35-year-old George on a max contract, already breaking down, already questioned inside the front office. And what makes it worse, you saw it coming. The second his stats dipped, the second he couldn't finish through contact like he used to. You knew something wasn't right, but you still held on, because that's what you do. Because you believed. And now, this draft, this Noah 3 pick, it suddenly means more than ever. It's not just about selecting a prospect anymore. It's about leverage, power, options. You can feel the shift, can't you? The Sixers aren't thinking like a win-now team anymore. They're thinking long-term, strategic, flexible. That's what makes this trade chatter with Paul George so serious. They're not just answering calls, they're making them. And if you think that's all smoke and mirrors, you're not paying attention. Here's what's brewing beneath the surface. If the Sixers trade back in the draft and attach George's contract, they create room to reshape the roster. It's not just about moving down to the 5th or 6th pick. It's about grabbing a player and shedding cap space. About adding assets, role players, depth, players who fit Nick Nurse's system. Because let's face it, George never really fit. Not with Maxey needing the ball more, not with McCain riving, and definitely not with Embiid watching from the bench in street clothes. You've seen the blueprint before. Boston did it. OKC's been doing it for years, and now the Sixers might be next. Trade a name, retool fast, bet on youth. And maybe that's what hurts the most, that you're back in this space. Questioning, rebuilding, after you were promised, contending, after you were told this was the year everything clicked. And let's not forget, if George is gone, that leaves a hole, a big one. You can't just plug it with a late lottery pick or a bench scorer. You need someone who fits, someone who doesn't slow Maxey down, someone who doesn't block McCain's development, someone who won't shrink in May. So the Sixers front office has to get this right. Every move, every decision. Because you won't wait forever. Not after everything you've endured over the past decade. You remember Jimmy. You remember Ben. You remember Harden. And now George. It's like deja vu all over again. And what's worse, this team had momentum just 2 seasons ago. Maxey was exploding. Embiid was MVP. You could almost taste the conference finals. But now you're reading Sixers news filled with uncertainty, speculation, and the same old word, trade. What you want, what you need is clarity, direction, a real plan, not patches, not aging stars. And maybe, just maybe, trading George and sliding down in the draft gives the front office enough ammo to finally build around the young core properly. No more short-term bets. No more washed-up names. Because let's be honest, when you saw George walking into the Wells Fargo Center this season, did you feel like a contender? Did he move like a $200 million star? Or did it already look like a guy at the end of his road? There's real fear here. The fear that trading him might be too late. That his value has already cratered. That this is the best offer they'll get. And that's why this moment matters so much. It's not just about moving Paul George. It's about resetting expectations, choosing a direction. Because if they screw this up again, you know what comes next. Wasting Maxey, losing Embiid, starting over. So here's the real question for you. If the Sixers can trade Paul George and get multiple pieces, a top 10 pick, a younger wing, maybe even cap space, do you pull the trigger? Or do you run it back and hope the stars finally align? Drop your thoughts in the comments. It's not easy to let go of the idea you had for this team. You pictured it? Maxey flying up the court, George knocking down big shots, Embiid anchoring the paint. You saw it in your mind long before it ever hit the court. But what actually happened? George limped through 41 games. Maxey carried 2. Much? Embiid broke down again. And you watched the playoffs from home, asking yourself the same question you asked after the Kawhi shot, after the Ben Simmons collapse, after Harden fizzled out. How did it fall apart again? But this time, it's different. Because the Sixers have the no 3 pick. Because Jared McCain is coming. Because Maxey is stepping into full-blown All-NBA territory. Because you finally have a young, hungry group ready to take the reins. If the franchise is bold enough to let them. You don't need another big name stuck in the past. You need pieces that grow together. That's what this trade could bring you. And maybe that's why you feel that strange mix of hope and hesitation. Because even though it hurts to admit it, trading Paul George could be the start of something better. If the Sixers package George with the no 3 pick and move down, they could walk away with a lower lottery selection plus a productive, cost-controlled player. Imagine someone who actually stays on the court, who defends with intensity, who cuts off the ball instead of waiting for ISOs. Someone who wants to be in Philly, who plays like every possession matters. That's who you deserve. That's who this city respects. The only problem is the risk. Because if you trade George and that new piece doesn't work, you already know what happens next. The fans turn. The media pounces. Embiid looks around and wonders what he's still doing here. And Maxey, he starts asking the questions you don't want to hear. That's what makes this moment so fragile, so important. You either pull off the move that turns the tide, or you fall back into another dark season that starts with hype and ends with regrets. But let's flip it around. Let's say the Sixers keep George. What are you really betting on? A bounce-back season from a 35-year-old who's missed time nearly every year for the past decade. A second wind on a massive contract. That blocks your cap flexibility for 3 more years? Come on. You've seen this movie before. And the ending never changes. Trading George doesn't mean giving up. It means getting real. It means facing what you already know. This roster didn't work. It never clicked. And as painful as it is to admit, the best path forward might be subtracting the name to add the value. It's the kind of move smart front offices make. Quiet, calculated, ruthless. You can already hear the reactions. The Sixers gave up too soon. George still has something left, but you know what's real? The eye test didn't lie. The numbers didn't lie. The 24-58 record didn't lie. And if you're being honest, this isn't about George anymore. It's about what comes next. Because you don't just want to sneak into the playoffs. You want a team that looks like it belongs in June. That plays with hunger, with cohesion, with an actual plan. And George, for all his talent, just doesn't represent that anymore. Not here. Not now. This trade, this draft, it's the pivot point. The crossroads. If the front office nails it, you're back in business. If they fumble it, you might lose everything. That's why this moment matters more than any in the last 3 years. And that's why you can't look away. So tell me, if you were running the Sixers, would you trade Paul George now? Or write it out and hope for a miracle comeback? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you want to stay locked in on every breaking Sixers news update and every possible trade, don't just watch, subscribe and hit that bell. Because you deserve the truth, and I'll be right here bringing it straight to you.